morning. Can't hear you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Better. Welcome to the National Archives. On this 132nd 4th of July, since American independence was launched in 1776. You've gathered here, as in past years, not simply to celebrate the holiday, but to witness the ceremony followed by a terrific parade. Yes, we welcome the flag waving, we welcome the patriotic costumes, we especially welcome the Revolutionary Patriots back for another year. Would all of our Revolutionary Patriots please stand and let us welcome you properly. Hello from all of us. But we've come to stand together today, as in every 4th of July, as Americans, to renew our unbreakable solidarity as a nation. Central to our purpose this morning is following the National Archives tradition of reading aloud in its entirety the Declaration of Independence as adopted by the Continental Congress on this day 232 years ago. Congress had voted for independence 2 days earlier, as you know, on July 2nd. The 4th of July is a conflicted occasion for many Americans, a holiday that the late historian, the late librarian of Congress, Daniel Weinstein, called a festival of justification, a day on which Americans display a candid mixture of national pride and periodic outrage in appropriate proportion. We recognize on this day, in short, not only the degree of our confidence and our patriotic self-assurance, but also our collective national anxieties, our unfulfilled hopes, alongside our recognized achievements. Thus, before the Civil War put an end to slavery, few African Americans could disagree with the words of anti-slavery black leader Frederick Douglass in his 1852 Independence Day speech, when Douglass said, "This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn." Any more than most American women at the time would dispute Susan B. Anthony's speech on the 100th anniversary of the Declaration in portraying that past century's history as a series of assumptions and usurpations of power over women. Whatever the actual facts of oppression confronted at the time, historian Joseph Ellis is correct in his eloquent book, American Creation, describing the pivotal passage in the Declaration of mere 55 words as the seminal statement of the American Creed. Please repeat them after me. I'm going to do them in sequence. We hold these truths to be self-evident.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
That they are endowed by their Creator.
That they are endowed by their Creator.
With certain unalienable rights.
With certain unalienable rights.
That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That to secure these rights.
That to secure these rights.
Governments are instituted among men.
Governments are instituted among men.
Deriving their just powers.
Deriving their just powers.
From the consent of the governed.
From the consent of the governed.
55 words. As Joe Ellis correctly observes, with these words, Thomas Jefferson planted the seeds that would grow into the expanding mandate for individual rights that eventually ended slavery, made women's suffrage inevitable, and sanctioned the civil rights of all minorities. We forget sometimes that the key founders of our nation saw themselves operating on a global stage, asserting values that were universal, avowing lessons important not only for their own country, but for all humanity, while recognizing at the same time that the unresolved issue of slavery remained to be addressed. This transatlantic perspective could be seen in the letter that Jefferson wrote to the committee organizing the Declaration of Independence's 50th anniversary celebration. Quoting Jefferson, "May the American Revolution be to the world what I believe it will be to some parts sooner, to others later, but finally to all, the signal for arousing men to burst the chains under which ignorance and superstition had persuaded them to bind themselves, and to assume the blessings and security of self-government. The mass of mankind," Jefferson pointed out, "has not been born with saddles on their back, nor a favored few booted and spurred, ready to ride them legitimately by the grace of God. A few questions now, for our own time as well as that of the founders, with an occasional conclusion. Are we still one nation indivisible with liberty and justice for all? Are we all patriotic Americans, whether Democrats, Republicans, or independents, liberals, moderates, or conservatives? And will we unite as Americans, regardless of party or creed, after the election? What do you say?
Yes.
Can't hear you.
Yes.
Better. The answers are actually decidedly yes, probably yes, and gad we better. After the election, will we again become a welcoming country, leading the world through generous example, and not drift further into unwelcoming and self-defeating habits? Answer?
Yes.
Hopefully. Although immigration remains an intractable problem akin to the earlier slavery issue. Will our National Archives be known in future for maximal access and openness provided to citizens and scholars alike, while recognizing genuine claims for national security secrecy? Will it?
Yes.
I can't hear you. Yes. I and the archive staff fight for greatest possible access and transparency every working day. We shall continue on the front lines of this complex struggle. And finally, in our present situation, have we learned to recognize and avoid the abuses of civil liberties and cynical attacks on political adversaries as unpatriotic? They were common to earlier war times. Have we learned how to avoid them? Oh, you don't sound very persuaded. The answer is I sincerely hope so, but we remain on the evidence to date, poised between hope and despair. Lincoln said it best, as with most issues, then and now. Abraham Lincoln said it best. In an 1861 speech in Philadelphia's Independence Hall, made at the Union's moment of gravest jeopardy, Lincoln reminded his fellow citizens of the essential quality that bound together past and future in our American Republic. I have often inquired of myself, Lincoln mused, what great principle or idea it was that kept the United States so long together. After he rejected the notion that the break with England alone, separateness, and the act of revolution was sufficient for this purpose, Lincoln concluded that it was, quote, that sentiment in the Declaration of Independence which gave liberty not alone to the people of this country, but hope to all the world for all future time. It was that which gave promise that in due time the weights would be lifted from the shoulders of all men and women, and that all would have an equal chance. This is the sentiment embodied in the Declaration of Independence. And as Lincoln concluded, I would rather be assassinated on this spot than surrender. One can only hope that the United States will retain these values that produce the same strong, principled loyalty of its citizens today as they did more than 2 centuries ago. My country, right or wrong, the 19th century immigrant political leader Carl Schurz observed, quickly qualifying his point for greater clarity. My country, right or wrong, when she is right, support her. When she is wrong, correct her. But for those of us seeking an immediate infusion of the spirit of the Declaration of Independence, I conclude and commend to you a story that President Eisenhower told of a stranger to Washington who hired a taxi to see the city. When passing the National Archives building, this very building, he saw the sign stating simply, "What is past is prologue. What is past is prologue." The tourist asked the cab driver what that expression meant, and the driver replied, "Oh, mister, that's simply a polite way of saying, you ain't seen nothing yet." Well, Here we are again.